Good afternoon. Today we will continue to study about the subordinating conjunctions. Especially we will deal with the conjunction whose, what, whose, what, and which. We've studied about the second page of this class previously, and we will start to study from the next page to learn about the definition of the subordinating conjunctions. The speaker describes the subject or object indicated by the noun or pronoun with the interrogative determiner applied as a subordinating conjunction in the subordinate clause. This page is about the way to apply the subordinating conjunction whose, which is the determiner, the possessive determiner. Like we can apply the subordinating conjunction whose like this. I see a man whose son is smart. In this sentence, the main clause is with the precedent, a man, and the subordinate clause is linked by the possessive determiner whose, and whose describes a noun, which is son. So we can understand that the linkage, the connection for the subordinate clause to the main clause is the phrase whose son. And as we admit it, the fact that the key factor, the basis of linking the subordinate clause to the main clause is finding the shared indication or description. So we can also find the shared expression. We can see that the precedent, a man, in the main clause and whose in the subordinate clause, especially in the phrase of the noun, whose son, indicate the same person. This is the shared indication for linking the subordinate clause to the main clause. And let's keep reading it. The subordinate clause has the trait as a pronoun because the speaker indicates the described subject or object in the subordinate clause as a subject or an object in the main clause. This explanation is about the pronouns whose and what. The speaker sets the phrase of the noun or pronoun to include the interrogative determiner as a shared indication in both the subordinate clause and the main clause. Like, I see a man whose son is smart. In this sentence, the phrase including the determiner is whose son. Let's study about the role of the subordinating conjunctions. The speaker applies the phrase of the interrogative determiner and the noun or pronoun that links the subordinate clause to the main clause to quote the interrogative clause that the interrogative determiner is applied in and convey the same intention as the interrogative clause to the listeners. The speaker links the subordinate clause converted from the interrogative clause that the interrogative determiner is applied in. the interrogative determiner is applied as a subordinating conjunction and consists of a phrase of a noun or a pronoun to link the subordinate clause to the main clause with the noun or pronoun. In this whole presentation, in this whole chapter, we will study about how the interrogative determiner becomes the subordinating conjunction with a noun or a pronoun. This is the reason why we deal with three subordinating conjunction: whose, what, and which. Except who, because the three determiners, the three interrogatives are applied as the interrogative determiner and the interrogative determiners, and the speaker who does not have any inquisitive intent can change the interrogative clause, like what time do we meet, or which person do you like the most, something like that, can be switched into the subordinate clause when the speaker does not have any inquisitive intent on the phrase, like what time or which person. The speaker does not have the interrogative intention about the range of the subject or object indicated by the noun or pronoun, because the noun or pronoun is applied in the declarative clause that becomes the subordinate clause. The interrogative determiner that consists of the phrase of the subordinating conjunction links the subordinate clause to the main clause and reveals the information about the range which the subject or object indicated by the noun or pronoun is included in, from the premise for the interrogative determiner to be applied. Let's study from the determiner whose. The speaker determines the range of the subject or object indicated by the noun or pronoun with the fact that the subject or object belongs to the other subject that the determiner whose indicates. The speaker does not reveal the subject indicated by the determiner whose in the sentence. However, the speaker only reveals the fact that the subject or object indicated by the noun or pronoun described by the determiner whose belongs to an unstated subject in the sentence. We will study about the determiner whose with three examples. The first one is this: you told me whose message you received. In this sentence, we can find that the subordinate clause is this: whose message you received. And we can also find that this subordinate clause, this whole subordinate clause is applied as the direct object of the main clause. The verb of the main clause is this, told, and the speaker is the indirect object as the ultimate destination to receive the direct object and the definition of the transitive verb told. And let's look into the subordinate clause. In this subordinate clause, we can find that the noun message is described by the subordinating conjunction whose. So we can see that, we can understand that this object of the subordinate clause belongs to an unstated subject. And this direct object is the subject. So I have to correct my expression, the unstated subject, to the speaker as the indirect object. And in the subordinate clause, this phrase whose message as the subordinating conjunctive phrase is the object of the transitive verb received. And as we've studied about the interrogative determiner whose, we can guess that the two clauses before being integrated into this sentence can be analyzed like this. You told me something. And this sentence, this clause might become the main clause. And the subordinate clause, whose message you received, might be the interrogative clause, like whose message did you receive? And let's look into the second sentence. The second sentence that the determiner whose is applied as the subordinating conjunction is this. Whose love he likes is important. In this sentence, we can find that the subordinate clause is the subject of the main clause. The be verb is in the main clause describes the whole subordinate clause as an indication. And in the subordinate clause, we can find that the phrase of the subordinating conjunctive phrase whose love is the object to receive the definition of the transitive verb likes from the subject he. And as we've studied about the interrogative determiner whose, we can analyze the whole sentence into the two clauses. The first sentence could be this. It is important. And this first clause might become the main clause. And the subordinate clause could be an interrogative clause with the interrogative determiner whose. Whose love does he like? And the speaker does not have any inquisitive intent on the object whose love, so the speaker might transform the interrogative clause into the declarative statement, and this could be the subordinate clause. And the speaker also finds that whose love indicates the same subject as the subject of be verb in the main clause. Let's study about the third example. The third example that the determiner whose is applied as the subordinating conjunction is this. I studied whose sacrifice Jesus Christ loves. In this sentence, we can find that the subordinate clause, whose sacrifice Jesus Christ loves, is the object of the main clause to receive the definition of the transitive verb studied from the speaker. And let's look into the subordinate clause. In the subordinate clause, the noun sacrifice forms a phrase with the determiner whose as the subordinating conjunction. And the phrase is the object in the subordinate clause to receive the definition of the transitive verb loves from the subject Jesus Christ. Let's study about the sentences one by one in the next class.